What if this whole thing, everything we're experiencing right now, is actually just a really intricate game? I know that sounds wild, but stick with me for a second. What if your struggles, your wins, even the random stuff that happens day to day are all part of this massive divine program where you're literally designed to have superpowers? They're just not activated right now. Listen, I've been on both sides of this conversation. For years, I was wrestling with spirituality after growing up with this super rigid religious environment. God was always painted as this figure in the sky who'd either bless you or punish you. And sometimes, if you prayed hard enough, you might just get what you want. But also maybe not, because it wasn't in God's plan. None of it really made any sense to me. But what if we've had it backwards this whole time? Instead of some moody deity calling the shots, what if we're dealing with universal laws that work exactly like computer code? What if prayer actually works because it's literally activating something inside of us, like punching in a cheat code in a video game? Well, the deeper I go into this stuff, the more mind-blowing it gets, and I'm not the only one seeing these patterns. When I first booked today's interview months ago, I thought we were just going to be talking about breaking free from orthorexia and all the crazy wellness industry rules. You know, the fear that everything's toxic and trying to kill us. And don't get me wrong, I'm still very intentional about what goes in and on my body, but I've learned some pretty mind-blowing things about what we actually need to worry about versus what is just fear-based marketing, even in the natural industry. And I still really want to share some of those things that I've learned, so stick around after the interview because I'm going to share some of the biggest myths that I've learned from Kaleigh, from microplastics to sulfates to even fluoride in toothpaste. But then our interview got rescheduled. And in the meantime, her Instagram stories unraveled into this fascinating deep dive on the history of religion. And that's when I knew we were about to crack open something way bigger. So there's this whole conversation happening right now about how we might be living in some kind of simulation. And not in a creepy Matrix way where maybe robots got so advanced that they created a simulation and we all just think we're real, but more like maybe that's just how God built this universe and we all just think we're real. Like this electromagnetic, multidimensional program where everything from numerology to ancient religious texts to the actual minerals in our bodies is part of this incredibly complex code that we're just starting to figure out. And here's what keeps blowing my mind. What if you're struggling, not because there's anything wrong with you, but because your character has literally been deactivated? Like a superhero who's temporarily lost their powers because something's blocking their energy. And the craziest part, the evidence isn't buried in some deep, dark conspiracy theory. It's literally right in front of us, in religious texts, in science, in nature, even in your own life experiences. We just haven't had the right lens to see it until now. And I'll be real with you, some of what we're about to talk about might mess with your head a little. It might make you uncomfortable. It might even sound completely out there at first. But I promise you this, by the end of this episode, you're going to see your role in this game of life in a totally different way. Today, our guest is Kaleigh Mason, and she's honestly become my favorite person on the internet. After completely transforming her own life by understanding these deeper codes of reality, now she helps others recognize and reactivate their own divine programming by bringing together ancient wisdom, modern science, real-world application in ways that will blow your mind. So in this episode, you'll learn how specific minerals in your body literally act as conductors for your natural superpowers and why modern life might be dampening them. The wild connection between numerology, religious texts, and your personal life mission. And the real truth behind wellness industry rules and how to figure out what's actually helping versus hurting you. Before we go deep today, I want to give you a little gift, and I want to give it to you every single day. It's called the Morning Mind Love. I know how life can be. You're all fired up after an inspiring episode, and then a new day or a new challenge comes at you, and it's just hard to keep up that energy. Well, the Morning Mind Love is kind of like an oracle from your higher self to help you start each day with a positive focus. Plus, when you sign up, you get 2 free gifts, a 30-minute binaural meditation and 30 days of journaling prompts to help you remember who you truly are. And it's all completely free. So join over 9,000 people and go to mindlove.com to sign up or text the word morning to 33777.
And then when I was in the light, what rushed back in was this gratitude and this exhilaration to be alive. And it was just so invigorating. And I remember I was just crying. I was doing these microdoses of psychedelics and I was just crying from gratitude and joy and just so happy to be alive, excited to be alive, and seeing everything for what it was and seeing this character that I came to play in this mission that I have on Earth. When I got the psychedelics in, it really clicked everything together, like everything I had learned about numerology, which somehow all the pieces of the puzzle fit together once I did those little microdoses. I think they're a very important part of the reactivation of mankind. I think that we need the minerals, and I think we need our spiritual medicine back.
Turn up your frequency with Mind Love. Bite-sized brain hacks for seekers, dreamers, and doers. It's time to give your mind a little love with your host, Melissa Monti.
I'm so excited about this. You have become my favorite person on the internet. So,
oh wow!
Well,
oh my God! I hope I live up to the hype.
I started really going into the rabbit holes of your Instagram at the time where I was becoming most fearful of just a lot of things. And some of them are warranted, but I don't want to hold fear in my body. I'm also very aware of what that does. And so I remember, at first, and I'm sure a lot of people are like this, reading some of your stories and I'm like mildly triggered. Like, I don't know. Must be true.
I do that.
But then certain things would make sense. And one of the first things was around teeth. So since I've gone holistic, and I actually switched to holistic toothpaste like 10 years ago, and I just have not felt good about them. This intuitive feeling that something was wrong. And then you were sharing all this other stuff. And I remember standing in the toothpaste aisle at a drugstore, which I hadn't been in a really long time.
Naughty girl.
Buying Crest. And I was having like heart palpitations. And I'm like, okay, this means that there's something else wrong. But we'll get into all that. But what I love about your content is you're really the only person online that I see that's able to share in so many different fields of thought, and people are just with it. Whereas other people do, and it's like, stay in your lane. So,
they have a niche.
And so I'm curious, like, what led you to all that you share today? Like, considering your life path and all of that, like, what is your mission here?
Well, it might sound a little cheesy, but my mission is to reactivate the superheroes in this video game that we're in. So when I first got online, I said to my best friend, I want to reactivate the superheroes because that's how we can win the war. I believe that there's a war against humanity. And I think that part of the war, part of their weaponization against us is to deactivate our characters in this video game. So we all came to play a character. We're all here. We all have a mission on Earth. And I think that they want to deactivate us into these slave zombie robots. And I think they do that by demineralizing us, because you need enough minerals to conduct the electromagnetism in the body to activate the programs that you're programmed with in your subconscious. Like I'm a life path 3, which is the communicator, the healer, the entertainer. But when I'm really demineralized and weak and low in magnesium, I can't even talk. So the negative side of your mission, the negative side of your life path or your programming is the exact opposite of your positive side. So on the positive side, my life path is very communicative and I'm really into the healing arts. That's part of my programming. I'm really into humanitarianism. That's part of my programming. But if I get really demineralized, maybe you go through trauma, stress, you run out of magnesium, you run out of these electrolytes, these minerals that conduct the electromagnetism in the body, and it deactivates you. You lose touch with your original self and you switch into the negative side of your programming. So, it's pretty basic, right? The positive side of your programming lives in the light, and the negative side of your programming lives in the dark. So if you run out of the conductive minerals that conduct the light, you lose touch with that positive side of your programming and you switch into the dark. So for me, as a life path 3, we become morosely silent. We become, you can't even get a word out of us. Like I have close people in my life that know that when I'm really negative, that you can't even talk to me. I can't even get a word out. But as you can see, I don't have any problems getting the words out when I'm positive, when I'm on my positive side. So that's what I think is happening, is that the enemy is using all kinds of demineralization tactics, like injections into the bloodstream that have excipients that deplete minerals, the foods that are already depleted in minerals, but then there's, foods that are very popular in the West that remove minerals from your body, like grains and beans and plant foods that have anti-nutrients that remove minerals from the body, that, that they have to be processed a certain way to prevent mineral loss. But oftentimes people are not doing those special preparations for those foods. And then, getting people on these demineralized waters, like the dehydration agenda, I call it, that's a demineralization tactic. So I believe deep down that it's to deactivate these characters in the video game. And that all of these archetypes that we've been shown throughout our lives in comic books and movies and fairy tales, all of these archetypes are human archetypes. That all of those medias are really nonfiction documentaries, you could say, on the human archetypes. A fairy tale, a comic book. All of this is nonfiction, I believe, and that they're showing us the human archetypes that we came to play in this video game, in God's video game. So we need enough light to activate those characters, to play those characters. So when I got on Instagram, I said to my best friend, I want to reactivate the superheroes, because that's how we can win the war, because they're specifically programmed to save people, to save the day. In tarot, the superhero archetype is the chariot. The chariot, he's like the winner. We've always had this kind of champion superhero chariot archetype throughout human history. And so we need to reactivate the winners so we can win this war.
I have been going deep into the programming for years, but I kind of go back and forth between, like, are we in a simulation, or is it God's simulation, and is there a difference between those two?
No. Yeah, like I do think that we're in some kind of electromagnetic layered reality that you could call simulated, because it's simulated by whoever created it, God. We say God for the creator of this universe. And it is a simulation, and you're a simulation, but it's a game. So that's what the war is. The war is part of this video game. It's part of the challenge of the game. And so, my character being the communicator, the highest purpose of the Life Path 3 is to communicate the secrets of the universe. Prophet adds up to 3 in Chaldean numerology. This is one of the archetypes of the 3: prophet, healer, communicator, teacher. So you see with the Life Path 3s is they're always kind of trying to communicate these ways that we can heal humanity or lift up humanity. Happiness adds up to 3, love adds up to 3. So they're always trying to promote these ideas. And that's just the character that I'm programmed to play by God in this video game. And it's, it fits in with this storyline. Like we have this storyline with this dark and light dynamic, this yin yang. So you have an enemy, and you have I like to call us the victors. I think that we've already won. So we are the victors in the video game. So you have like the arch nemesis, the enemy, and you have the victors, you have the good guys. So yeah, I think it's definitely a simulation, but it's fun. There's nothing to feel doom about, with that, in that regard. And I do believe that we are winning. So, because I don't want people to feel afraid. Like when I say that we're in a war, there's an enemy, I don't want to promote any kind of paranoia or fear. I just want you to know what the game is. and get your costume on, get your archetype activated, get your character activated, and let's go. Let's win.
Yeah, it's like Super Mario wouldn't have been any fun without King Koopa.
Yeah, exactly. You need a challenge. Exactly. You need a challenge. You need something to overcome. And yeah, the journey is the best part. The walk is the best part, not the destination, but the journey getting there. So this whole battle and everything we've gone through and all the traumas we've all gone through, it's all part of this exhilarating journey that we're on in the human experience. So, I just want to show people how to get the light back in their bodies so that they can continually switch back into their positive programming, their positive archetypes, and, feel good about themselves and feel like a winner and win.
What was it that woke you up from the negative programming or the just sort of
Dark side?
Day by day? Yeah, the numbness is how I kind of look at it. What woke you up to realize that we're in a game, there might be an enemy, and that we need to mineralize?
At Sierra, discover great deals on top brand workout gear, like high-quality bikes, which might lead to another discovery. Getting back on the saddle isn't always comfortable. Good news is Sierra has massage guns. And chafe wipes, too. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. From streaming to shopping, Prime helps you get more out of your passions. So whether you're a fan of true crime or prefer a nail-biting novel from time to time, with services like Prime Video, Amazon Music, and fast free delivery, Prime makes it easy to get more out of whatever you're into or getting into. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to learn more.
What woke you up to realize that we're in a game, there might be an enemy, and that we need to mineralize?
Well, it was a bit of a journey with. First, I will say Thomas Lavoie, a French Canadian, a good friend of mine. He really pushed me to take huge doses of magnesium, and I was shitting my pants, but it was the most relaxed I'd ever been in my whole life. And it really helped to reactivate that light. I call magnesium the white light mineral, because we use it in fireworks and in sparklers to conduct a white light. And that's what it does in the human brain. It acts like a little sparkle, a little fireworks show in there, and it lights all the white light in your brain. So when you feel like you're in the dark, the white light of magnesium can illuminate your mind. So I do want to give credit and always shout out my friend Thomas for pushing me to take so much magnesium. And we were kind of experimenting on ourselves together. We were communicating back and forth about different minerals and different things we were finding out. We were both really interested in Dr. Joel Wallach, who is a veterinarian, I believe, from Texas, from the United States. And he's healed people of all kinds of problems and issues with just minerals. He's so brilliant. And we were both very fascinated with him. So we were on this journey of discovering minerals and remineralization. But then that led me to psychedelics. First, I started high dosing minerals. And then the next stage was my best friend brought me psychedelics, and I started microdosing psychedelics, and that reconnected the circuits in my mind so that I could see reality. So first I had the light, I had the magnesium and the remineralization I was doing, experimenting with my friend, and that really helped a lot. That made a huge difference. When your fear, when your anxiety drops to zero, you can finally think clearly and see things for what they are. And then the next thing that happened was, I very clearly remember being totally unafraid, because I had previously been very fearful about street drugs or anything like that. The only thing I would do is natural herbs like, marijuana or magic mushrooms. I didn't want to do anything synthetic, I thought. But I remember after getting the minerals, I had a strong pull towards these psychedelics. And as a teenager, I had studied Alan Watson. He's really into LSD and psychedelics, and he believes they have a purpose. But I was very against them for so long. But anyway, for some reason, I was, attracted to the psychedelics, and I microdosed the psychedelics, and they reconnected the circuits. I tried DMT, which they call the spirit molecule. And that's what your pineal gland produces at night to allow you to dream. So that kind of brought the dreams and the colors back into my mind, doing that, having that experience. And it's a kind of a once in a lifetime thing. You don't need to do it all the time. You know, you could do it once and have that impact you the rest of your life. Or you can do DMT breathing. You can do certain kinds of breath work to get the DMT producing in your mind. But I was very attracted to these psychotropic compounds. I did a course from the Center of Excellence on psychotropics. And I think that is what really opened my eyes to what I believe is reality. I believe that we are in a game, and, you know, the human experience, and what rushed in first was gratitude to be here, because when I was in the dark, I didn't feel grateful to be alive. When I was in the dark, I really wanted to die, actually, you know, and I would kind of, think about, suicide. I don't know what I can say here, but, you know, the internet.
Whatever you want.
So censored now, but yeah, I thought about suicide daily. And then when I was in the light, what rushed back in was this gratitude and this exhilaration to be alive. And I hadn't felt that since I was like a little child, like maybe 4 or 5 years old. And it was just so invigorating. You know, I was like, wow. And I remember I was just crying. You know, I was doing these microdoses of psychedelics, and I was just crying from gratitude and joy, and just so happy to be alive, excited to be alive, and seeing everything for what it was, and seeing this character that I came to play, and this mission that I have on Earth, and this mission that everybody has. And when I got the psychedelics in, it really clicked everything together, like everything I had learned about numerology, which is a path my grandmother set me on. And, the pieces that I had collected and the data that I had collected, somehow all the pieces of the puzzle fit together once I did those little microdoses of psychedelics. So really, truly, I think they're a very important part of the reactivation of mankind. I think that we need the minerals, and I think we need our spiritual medicine back. I think that humanity always had psychotropics. You know, that's one thing I learned from the Center of Excellence with their psychotropic course, is that our ancestors used psychotropics all the time. And they had tons of recipes, like flying recipes, you know, literally where your spirit is detaching and you're flying through the air, and it feels very, very real. And they were murdered over those recipes. Our ancestors, they were killed. You know, my ancestors, the Irish, they were killed over these recipes, these herbal recipes. So it's a big part of reactivating humanity, is getting that spiritual medicine back, because it's been so demonized. And I'm sure there's people listening to me now and thinking, you know, that it's bad or it's wrong, you know, and, you know, that you shouldn't do drugs. You know, we were really programmed with that. But psychotropics belong with mankind. We've walked with them for tens of thousands of years, and they have to be used properly. We need our shamans, we need our healers and our medicine women and men to carry this knowledge and to use this stuff properly, so that we can stay activated and not become these slave zombie robots living in the dark wanting to die.
Yeah, ayahuasca was one of the most profound things I've ever done. That and 5-MeO DMT. It was like a reset that I really needed at a time in my life, because my 20s were just so hard, getting a felony for someone else's crime, bulimia, like all sorts of crazy things happened to me. And so that's been my like sort of come up after that. But without psychedelics, I mean, it's hard to say that something wouldn't happen for sure. I think I was here for this. So some way or another, I would have found this path, hopefully. But but that was one of those moments where afterwards it just felt like my whole life had reset. Like everything was brand new, and I could start fresh without guilt or pain and then it came back, you know, but then I knew that there was this other reality there. And that's what really propelled me on the spiritual exploration, because all I could think was, okay, how can I get to this place without being on a substance? Because I know that it exists.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and I think that the substances, we've always had the substances. So I don't think that we have to, you know, here in Mexico, there are tribes that even give certain psychotropic plants from their environment, that they even give them to toddlers and pregnant women. Like, it's insane. Like, they're, you know, according to our kind of thinking and how demonized these psychotropic plants have been in our societies, like that sounds so dangerous and so scary that they're giving these children, but they've been doing that for hundreds of years. And that's just what they do as a tribe, as a village. So, nothing bad has ever happened from them doing that. But yeah, it's we even with you having those good experiences, it's like, well, how can I get there without these drugs? And I'm sure there are ways, like there's definitely ways. And I think people have certain programmings that allow them to see those layers of reality without drugs. But someone like me who doesn't have that programming, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing those psychotropic plants to get to that experience, to see that reality. Because it is something everybody needs to see. Everybody needs to see those colors.
Yeah, and how all of a sudden everything fits into a grid perfectly and looks so organized.
Yes, everyone needs to see the computer.
Yes.
The HTML.
Just a little bit of mushrooms will get you there.
Yes, just a little bit. And that's what I'm saying is that, I was always very fearful about psychedelics and psychotropics, so I never did too much. I always did really, really tiny amounts. But with DMT, I did enough to get the colors, to see the colors. And there's a whole layer of reality. There's colors that we're not seeing. And it's absolutely, phenomenally, incredibly beautiful. It's the most beautiful visual experience I've ever had in my whole life. It's incredible. And I just really believe everyone should see that. It's life-changing forever.
So tell us about life path numbers. You calculate it by taking all the numbers from your birthday. So mine's May 14th, 1985. That equals 33. So I'm a life path 6. But tell us what these mean for us.
Okay. So you said you're 1985? Okay. 3, 5, 6. Okay. So your first vibration is 5. And the first vibration is the first thing that people see about you, according to numerology. And I have noticed that this is, like, if you look at words that add up to 5, sweet, nurturing, magical, you might find that when people first meet you, they call you by those names that add up to your first vibration. That's one thing I noticed. So my first vibration is 6. Artist adds up to 6. And I had a lot of elderly ladies in the health food store that would say, "Are you an artist?" They would just say that out of nowhere. And so that's the first vibration. They're seeing the first vibration. And I would say, "How'd you know that?" And they'd go, "Well, by your voice or by your dress, by the way you look." I was wearing the costume of the artist. But that's the first thing people see about us. And it's the first thing you saw about yourself when you came into the human experience. So 5 is the genius archetype, I call it, or the God archetype. You're here to play a creative genius, a creator. The creator of the universe is a genius, obviously. A creative genius. So it's the God archetype. You're meant to create your own universe, like J.K. Rowling is a life path 5, and she created the Harry Potter universe. She's the god of the Harry Potter universe. So you're meant to create your own little universe and become the god of it. Beyonce is a life path 5. So this is kind of the phenomenon with life path 5 is they create these worlds where they're the god of that world. So that's your first vibration. It's the first thing you saw about yourself. So you might have seen when you first came into the human experience, you might have seen, wow, I'm a freaking genius.
I still think that sometimes.
You might have just, because it's okay to have awareness about who you are, because God created you. You're an invention of God. So it's okay to rep yourself. It's okay to be proud of yourself and how God made you. In my opinion, it gives reverence and gratitude to the creator of you. So saying, wow, I'm a genius. I get to play the genius. I get to play the God archetype. That's amazing. I'm magical. Magical adds up to 5, magical with a K. So your first vibration is 5, and then you're born May. So your achievement number is 1, which is the shaman, magician. So your achievement number is the way that you're programmed to get rich in the video game, to get your tokens. Like, how when you watch Super Mario Brothers, Mario goes through the game and he's always trying to get the coins, his tokens. So he is specifically programmed to do certain moves to get those coins. And that's exactly like humans. We are specifically programmed that we have to fulfill certain actions to get our coins, to get our tokens, to get our gold. gold is a big token in this video game, real gold. And I think that's why the enemy gave us banknotes instead of the gold, because the gold empowers us. It's part of the game. It's real money. It's got energy. So paper doesn't have much energy compared to a gold coin. But anyway, we're all programmed with a kind of action that we have to fulfill. So you have to fulfill this archetype, the shaman, the magician, the hero. You have to fulfill these archetypes or these traits of the one program to get your coins. So this is actually kind of perfect, the mind love with Melissa, because it's a very shamanic kind of thing to focus on mind power. And and you're talking about doing ayahuasca, it's very shaman coded.
I know. I have thought quite a few times, I really want to be a shaman, but I feel like I get so much hate being another white girl shaman,
Oh, yes. It's pretty sick, the hatred against skin shades. It's pretty sick. But you're already a shaman. You were born a shaman. God made you a shaman. And shamans come in all skin shades. So you be yourself. You already are. You don't got to go to any courses. Some people say, well, what course should I take or what school should I go to become this, when I'm telling them about their numerology? So you don't have to do any of that. You're already programmed to do what you are meant to do. So you just let your subconscious flow. Let your instincts run the game, run the show. But your life path, so that's the achievement number. That's how you get rich. Your life path is the mission on earth. So life path 6, or when you turn 50, it becomes the life path 33. When you have your Chiron return, Chiron is the wounded healer. So for a life path 6, when they have their Chiron return, something happens. They become a kind of more powerful version of themselves. So we call it the life path 33, which is a master number version of 6. 3 + 3 is 6. So life path 6 is the artist, musician, as I was saying with the artist program. But it's energy healer. So I'm a healer. Healer adds up to 3 in Chaldean numerology, but energy healer adds up to 6. So you're a very different kind of healer. Like I heal with spells, like words, communication. I put the right words together to unlock people's minds or to give them the secrets of the universe to communicate. But you do it with your energy. You do it with a thought or a touch. You could do it with your word if you like, but with life past 6, they have a very special superpower that you can touch a person and they're healed. This Australian man named Charlie, he's a life path 6, and he discovered at 18 years old that he can touch people and take their pain away for good, forever. And it's like a documented phenomenon. Like they've done documentaries on him. They've done interviews with him, because he can take someone that's been in pain for 7 years and he just puts his hands on them and they're healed. And I've seen this with other life path 6s in my own life. My father was a life path 6. I saw this. I had a toothache. He put his hand on my neck and the toothache disappeared. And I said, how did you do that? Oh, sorry. His name is Charlie Goldsmith. Charlie Goldsmith from Australia. Everybody's got to look up that story, because it's just the most remarkable example of this life path 6 superpower that you guys have. And then I have another life path 6 friend named Jolt. He's from Eastern Europe, and he has the ability to put his forehead to other people's foreheads and take their headaches away, take their migraines away. He just has to put his forehead to your forehead. And others, I've met other life path 6s that have this very remarkable ability. So they get into Reiki, they get into energy healing, and that's often shit on. People don't respect it. But to me, when it's the right person, it's just an example of this magical realm that we're in, and how incredible it is that someone like you can generate a certain kind of electromagnetism that heals other people's bodies. And that's how God has programmed you. God has programmed you with that superpower. And we've all become so dumbed down and dull that we want to act like that's bullshit. Like laying on of hands is an ancient practice. This is even something that the Christians believe in, the Christian religion, that Jesus was healing people with his touch. But believe me, this is something that real people are doing all over the world when they have the 6th program.
I find it so interesting so I was raised Christian. I've talked a lot about that on this show, just kind of having trauma from it and finding my way in spirituality later on. But I just find it so interesting that so many devout Christians, including my own mother, so open-minded to the idea that there were enough people to write this several thousand-page book channeling from God back then, but anytime there's a channeler now, it's no, it must be blasphemy. It must be evil.
Demonic.
And I feel like it's one of the ways that, you know, we've talked about sort of the enemy of the game. There's all these modes of deception of pulling us away from our true power and what's actually possible if we remember. And so that's when I start to there's this meme I keep seeing. It's like me throwing people down another rabbit hole, and it's this guy dressed as a giant bunny, like throwing people down a hole. I feel like that's me. And I start to tell people, I'm like, no, that's too dark. I don't want to believe that there's this like enemy of humanity. And I'm like, it's not dark, because when you get underneath it, you start to realize we're in this magical realm. We're magical beings. We're electromagnetic beings. And if we can just believe in ourselves and tap into that, even like Peter Pan's, like, you got to believe in Tinkerbell for her to exist. You know?
Yeah. That is so true. That is so true. You know, we see these little fairies here in Mexico, in Oaxaca here. So I heard that fairies are really attracted to lights and beautiful gardens and flowers. And the one day, this little white fairy, and she looks exactly like Tinkerbell. And I tried to get a video of these fairies, because once I started to believe, like, I saw the first one, I was like saying to my husband, that's a fairy. Like, what bug was that? What insect was that? And we were searching the internet, trying to find what insect that could be. And we couldn't find any insect that looked like her. I say her because it's like this dainty little woman. It's insane. It looks exactly like Tinkerbell, and it's the tiniest little fairy. And so then once I started believing in fairies after seeing that, now we see them everywhere in our garden, hundreds of fairies in our lemon balm, and it just blows my mind. And you try to catch them on the camera, and they move so quickly that they just look like this little white fuzz. But it's really remarkable, because they're white with a little touch of blue, and that's how they depicted Tinkerbell, was white with a little touch of blue. But anyway, that's just something that's been happening to me recently, is believing in fairies.
Exactly. Everything's hidden in plain sight. Every time I'm seeing something in a Disney movie or whatever, besides the little sexual innuendos hidden in the background, I'm like, hold on, let's dive deeper into this. And then usually I can find something from like 100 years ago where most people believed it was real.
As a fact. They just believed it as a fact.
What do you think the biggest avenues of deception are in this game that we're in?
Biggest avenues of deception. Well, wellness is the number one, because they do the fake wellness over on the allopathic side with the injections and the, protector immunity and all that stuff. So the fake wellness over there, and then they've got the fake wellness over on the holistic side as well. They've got all these really dangerous health products and nutraceuticals that are quite toxic to the body. So I think maybe the first one is because you really do, when you're trying to demineralize someone, you obviously want to go through those avenues, because I think that's their biggest weapon against us, is to demineralize us, because then we off ourselves, or we ruin our own lives. It's like, just take the minerals away and we're over there in the dark, we're over there in hell, and we'll extinguish ourselves. So I think that's the biggest one, is the wellness space, allopathic and this fake holistic wellness space. And it's funny how they both put out the contagion thing, like, be scared of the others. They both do that. Like, you got to kill everything. You got to kill the bacteria, take the zeolites, take the diatomaceous earth, take the injections. So it's like they want to fragment you, disconnect you from the world. You got to fear the others. You got to fear what's out there.
Yeah, I started getting really into your Instagram right before I was almost convinced to do a cell core parasite cleanse.
Oh no!
I'm so glad
Hallelujah.
My two
That's so
cousins
good.
did it, and I think so far they believe they're unscathed, but but at the same time, both of them have been like trying to heal something forever, and one of them does have quite a few symptoms. So it's just kind of
They get in
interesting
a
to watch.
cycle.
Yeah, to watch other people's. And my thought was for one of my cousins, I'm like, well, what if because our body's always trying to reach homeostasis, and so I get that like the holistic world has convinced us all that we need these cleanses all the time. You should be doing 3 parasite cleanses here and you should do this but if your body's always trying to reach homeostasis and comfort and you're always disrupting it with some extreme new way of eating, isn't your body just going to be stressed out the whole time?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely it will be. And yeah, a lot of people don't need to do, like, I don't think anybody needs to do these parasite cleanses, killing all these organisms in their body. Like if you have a parasite infection, there's something wrong with the body. You know, the body is very weak. Like you shouldn't have, it's just like when you're growing potatoes or growing any kind of root vegetable in the ground, when the potato comes out with different molds and fungus growing on it, you look at the soil, and so whatever minerals are missing from the soil, the farmer adds those minerals to the soil, and then the potato comes out perfect. So you want to make the vegetables, the root vegetables, resistant. You don't want to be putting antibiotics on the potatoes and these antibiotic herbs, on the potatoes to kill. You want to make the potato resistant from the inside out to the organisms that are growing on it that are disrupting its quality. So it's the same thing with humans, is that we need the minerals, whatever minerals are missing that are allowing these organisms to overgrow. We got to put those minerals back in. And, with these parasite cleanses, the reason people get into this cycle of parasite cleansing and this cycle of, whatever they're doing, sometimes they're doing it all at once. They're doing a parasite cleanse, zeolites, diatomaceous earth, sauna, cold baths. They're doing all these very, very stressful therapies all at once. And it's actually taking out more of the minerals. Like they're depleting more of the minerals that got them sick in the first place, the mineral deficiencies that got them sick in the first place. So they're depleting more of those. So yeah, it's very counterproductive and counterintuitive because you have to convince yourself that feeling bad is a good thing. And that's, part of that Herx gaslighting that they do in the wellness space is they say, oh, it's just the toxins leaving your body. If you feel sick, it's a good thing. And so you have to gaslight your own instincts and ignore your own intuition about feeling bad. It's pretty sick, pretty disturbing in my opinion.
Yeah. And I have one thing that's changed in the last year is I've stopped calling things toxic. Like I used to go in like CVS or Walgreens and I'm like, oh, this is just all toxic stuff.
Toxic.
Like my grandma's cabinets. Oh my gosh, your toxic products. And now I'm like, I refuse and I will only call it conventional because I realize you can't believe that everything's out there trying to kill you without holding that stress in your body. And so when I broke that mindset and tried Crest for the first time in 12 years and Pantene and it just started calling things conventional. It was like the world seemed like a more
friendly place.
And it was funny when I first reached out to you for this interview, I was determined that this was going to be all about breaking orthorexia because it was like such this mind expander for me, kind of getting out of that, which I should apologize to my listeners over the last like 7 years if I've
I apologize.
Accidentally said something awful about, your toothpaste or whatever and all the toxins. I did not mean to victimize you, but I'm on the other side of this for a while. But I thought it was going to be about orthorexia. But then, like I said in the beginning of this, how the conversation will just change. Your Instagram is different than other Instagrams because you're not just sharing your opinions. You'll share a lot of knowledge. We can tell how knowledgeable you are in like Chinese medicine, numerology, but then a whole different topic will come up like religion. And you'll know all of this stuff. I've spent a lot of time in the last 10 years studying the history of religion because I had to get out of my own programming. Because when I was growing up Christian, there was something that felt off and no one would answer my questions. And my questions were seen as some sort of resistance when really I was just like, but I don't understand. Why is God murdering millions of people in the Old Testament, but it's a God of love? It makes no sense, And so I, for a while, I was just sort of rebellious. It was more rebellion against my parents, I think, where I was like, no, God. But then I kept being pulled and I opened up to spirituality and my life just started blossoming in different ways. But for a long time, there was this like, okay, but what if I'm wrong? Like, what if I die and then I do end up in hell because I did this wrong because of my programming? And so I had to like really look into like, what was Jesus saying? What was the Bible before? What about all these other religions? How do they intersect? What's the truth behind them all? And you started talking about Islam and Christianity and their. So just tell us what your views are on religion. What do you lean towards? How do you see it all?
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
Build a routine with Ollie that supports your wellness needs, like getting your daily vitamins and minerals with Ollie's multi-gummies, or keeping your mood upbeat with all the vitamin D in Hello Happy. Give your gut health some support with probiotics, and wake up feeling refreshed after taking Ollie Sleep. Do wellness on your terms. Find Ollie at a Walmart or Target near you or at ollie.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Tell us what your views are on religion. What do you lean towards? How do you see it all?
Well, I love religion. I love studying religion. Even as a child, I always loved learning about religion and listening to people tell me about their religions. And whenever anybody would come to me with a new religion or they wanted me to go to their church with them, I'd go, yeah. And I was always like really open to, yeah, let's be Catholic, let's be Jewish. Like I used to go to a synagogue when I was in my teens. And then I was raised in a Christian cult as a child, Armstronganism, Herbert W. Armstrong, Garner Ted Armstrong. And, there was a lot of, there's definitely a lot of dark programming in religion. But when you unearth the reality of the scriptures, they're not dark, they're symbolic. And humans are spatial learners. So they often made these stories quite dark, kind of like Grimm's fairy tales. They made the stories quite dark so that they would be memorable. And dark things do happen on Earth, especially during certain time periods, like when we look at the astrological ages. There's some ages that are filled with horror, and then there's some ages that are wonderful and everyone's peaceful and world peace. So yeah, there's definitely dark things that happen. So there is some kind of historical context with those stories in the scripture, but a lot of times it is allegory for astrology and for chemistry and for data, for scientific data that needs to be remembered. And so they make the stories really memorable, So I love religion. I love studying religion. I reverted to Islam in 2015, 16. It was just turning into 2016. And I love Islam. It's a beautiful religion. And everybody's kind of trying to figure out which one's the right one, which one's the best one. And what I want to promote or tell people is that you don't have to choose. You can have them all. And I think that's just part of my kind of, as a life path 3, the life path 3 is the Empress archetype. And she is a character that has unlimited abundance to share. And then I have 4 planets in Sagittarius in my natal chart. So I have a very abundant kind of thinking. So I always think, well, why would you want to just choose one? You can choose them all. You can take whatever fits you or whatever suits you, whatever makes you feel at peace. You can take that from that religion. You can use that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Everybody's arguing about which one's the right one. It's like, well, all of these religions were designed to bring you to love and to bring you to God. And when you're arguing about which one's the right one, you're not feeling that love. Like, people are so focused on making others wrong and making each other wrong that they're not even loving each other. So I just want to see more of like people of different religions being able to communicate and see the common threads throughout the religions, because Islam, Judaism, Christianity, they're all Abrahamic religions. They all have the same Abrahamic God, but then they all act like it's a different God they're all worshiping just to be right about something or just to be superior about something. So there is a lot of sociopathy in religion with religious people, because some people use religious titles or religious affiliations as a sociopathic cover. I've seen lots of pedophiles and really bad people use the Christian label as a cover so that they're trusted. The brethren just naturally trust them, and so that they can get a way in and then abuse your children or abuse you or whatever. So there's a lot of bad people, obviously, in religion. 87% of sex offenders in prison identify as religious. This is a statistic I read recently, but I think that it can be used as a cover, but underneath, religion is really, really cool and interesting. Like when you get down to it, the scriptures and the allegory and the ancient texts and the history, it's all fascinating, and it brings you closer to understanding humanity.
Yeah, I will pop into church here and there because I do feel an energy during the worship services, even if their band is bad. but one thing that I've recently opened up to, because for a long time in my spiritual journey, I was just like, okay, well then religion, that's another form of deception. It's how they're trying to control people. And I started to really view at least my view of my Christian upbringing was it just felt like I didn't have a connection to God until after it. And I didn't have a connection to like our magical nature and things like that. So my theory was for a long time that, the way they kind of use the obedience and stuff like that it maybe took away my intuition. But I shared a book with you a few months ago when the religion conversation was happening, The Secrets of Divine Love, and by A. Helwa, and it's a book on Islam. And I just wanted to, open myself. Like whenever I'm feeling judgment, I know that if I'm holding judgment, I'm not cutting off the love to the other person. I can't feel love in my body. And so when we think we're taking something away from somebody else, we're actually turning it off in ourselves too. And so when I feel judgment, I tend to just dive into it so that I understand the other side. And what I've gained from understanding more about Islam is that Islam is more about the heart purification. They talk about that a lot. And now the obedience and the like living rightly, morally, doing the right thing, that is what purifies your heart. And so if you're sitting there like stealing and lying and doing things that we know are morally wrong, and then you say like, oh, now just listen to your heart, just go by your intuition, you're not going to get the right signal. You have to purify that heart. And so that sort of changed my mind around the whole obedience part and like the laws of different religion, where I'm like, okay, now I can see why those could be really important. It's putting a container around your moral compass so that you can actually hear the purified inner voice.
Yeah. And that's an interesting point, because there are a lot of people in religion that use it so that they know what right and wrong is, because they don't have that connection to their own moral compass. They don't naturally know what's right or wrong. They have to be told by a church leader or, someone who's interpreting the scripture for them. So it's interesting how because I felt the same way. I felt a disconnection from my intuition growing up in religion. Or growing up in that religion that I was raised in, I did feel dull, and I had the same kind of questions you did. Like I didn't understand why we weren't adding more books to the Bible. That was one of my questions as a child: is why don't we write books now to add to the Bible? Or why, another one was, why do we not have any new hymns? Because in my church, we sang these old, dead, tired hymns from the 1800s. And I just wondered, why aren't we writing our own songs to sing for God? Like, if I am supposed to be worshiping God, shouldn't it come from my own heart song? And that was just something that I, naturally wanted to do. So I wrote my own hymns from a young age, and it always disturbed my mother. My mother is very religious, and she would nitpick my lyrics. She would say, there was one song where I sang, "Oh, I want to be an angel, and with angels fly." And afterwards, after I performed that for the church, she said, "You know that we can't become angels, Kaleigh. We die, and then we're resurrected by Jesus." And she had her whole script, her whole programming so she couldn't appreciate the lyrics. But yeah, I always felt so confused by that, why we couldn't be free.
And it is a little sus that they stopped at 66 books of the Bible.
Yeah. Yeah, they love that number, right? And they could have, there's way more scriptures that they could have added, but they chose 66.
I know the Book of Thomas is the biggest loss, and this is my absolute favorite. I feel like that actually shows you what Jesus was trying to say.
Yeah.
And why remove that one? It is so aligned with some other parts of the Bible where it says almost the exact same thing. Like, it should have been in there. So that was one of the things where I was like, okay, yeah, if you're taking this one out, I don't trust anything you have to say.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people are programmed to believe that the books that are there, that's ordained by God and la la la. And that's fine to believe that, but I think that there is something very valuable in the Gnostic Gospels. If you explore the Gnostic Gospels and the ones that weren't added in there, like you said, the Lost Gospel of Thomas, there's some really, really valuable stuff in there. And it's funny you brought up the Lost Gospel of Thomas, because that's the one that I used to write a song when I was a teen. I used, if you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. And if you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. And it's so direct. Like, that gospel is just so direct and so great. So yeah, I totally agree that people should kind of go outside the bounds. There's nothing wrong with being curious and just reading and exploring. And I feel like that was one of the things that opened my mind. Was when I was 15 years old, I went to the bookstore with my dad, and we would sit there and read the Gnostic Gospels, because we didn't have any money to buy the books. So we would just sit there and read the books. But yeah, it really opens your mind that, it's not just this one book and this one set programming of what they've told you the book means, because everybody's interpreting it different. Everybody's translating the words differently. And it makes you realize that you have to kind of do it on your own. You have to go to the original words, the original languages, and you have to do etymology on those words to understand how they were used in that context. Because when you do that, that's when you learn that there is no hell. When you do that, when you go to the Bible and you start doing etymology on the original language, then you look at all these words that they translated to hell. And in the original languages, they're all different words. And, some of them mean the grave of mankind, or the sulfur lake, the lake of fire, which was an actual place that they put dead bodies. It was literally a sulfur lake that they would use to dissolve dead bodies. So it was a physical place on earth. So, when you do the etymology on the words, the story becomes very different. And I feel that when you study the Bible, you actually become quite interested in numerology and astrology, because that's woven in there if you open your mind to it.
Yeah. Bart D. Ehrman, I've read like 12 of his books now. I want to read all of them, but he talks about one of his books, Heaven and Hell, A History of the Afterlife, really goes into what they believed before, when the sentiments started to change, who was in power at that time, why it was then in their best interest to convince people that hell was a place, because it keeps them in control. And I believe in hell, but I just believe I've already been there.
Yeah, a place on earth for sure.
Yeah, it's a place in my mind. It's how my worldview changes when I'm in a different state of mind, or maybe demineralized enough to, where everything just looks like doom and gloom. So yeah, it's it's freeing though when you get there, because there isn't that like, okay, what if I make the wrong choice? Like, man, the poor Native Americans who didn't have white people to come save them with Christianity, they're all going to hell.
Yeah. We would always ask. There was a Christian group in my high school, because in my Christian group, we didn't believe that people went to hell. We didn't believe in hell. But there was a Christian group in my high school that believed that if you didn't know the name of Jesus, you went to hell. So we would always ask them, what about these people over in Bali? What about, we'd always about these obscure places all over the world. What about Fiji Island? And these kids would go, yep, they're going to hell too, because they don't know the name of Jesus. So there's some pretty negative, there's some pretty negative, dark, twisted programming going on in the Christian groups for sure, and some pretty unchristian happenings. But that's one thing that I think helps a lot of people break free, is just that knowledge that hell was invented by the Roman government. That a lot of your interpretations of the Bible are government interpretations, just like you said, to control the people, to control the population.
Yeah, and when the Romans took over, they needed historical legitimacy. During that exact time, there was a mass printing of Bibles. If suddenly our government did a mass printing of books on our current time, we'd be like, wait a second, there's a lot of suspicious stuff going on. But
propaganda.
Well, that's the thing that always confuses me. I'm like, if you're going to devote your entire life to this one ideology, you don't want to just look a little bit deeper. You don't want to look at the other side just a little bit. But you said there's numerology in the Bible.
Yeah, a lot. Well, it was Newton. Newton was obsessed with the numerology of the Bible. If you watch a documentary on him, because there's like certain numbers that are repeated over and over again. Like I'm not an expert on the numerology of the Bible, but Newton was. He had a lot of notes on the numerology of the Bible and all these patterns and themes. And then I know that the University of Israel, they did this analysis on the Bible, and they found hidden codes under the texts, like hidden messages. So they said that the first 5 books of the Bible, that this was the only book that they were able to find this phenomenon with, that they tried War and Peace. They tried all these other huge books. And so what the computer program does is it counts every letter, like, you could count every 16th letter, every 14th letter, every 500th letter, to see if there's a hidden message. And the only book that they found hidden messages in is the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, the Torah, which is in the Quran, it's in the Christian Bible, and it's in the Jewish Bible. Those first 5 books are the kind of the book that threads those 3 religions together.
Oh yeah, there's a book by a book called The Bible Code that I have.
That's it. Yes.
Okay, well now I'm definitely going to read it.
It's really, really good. It gives you chills, and it has a lot of evidence to confirm some of the historical stories in the Bible, because, that's one thing that the enemy loves to do, is mix fact with fiction. And that's one way to get people, under your control, is give them some truth so that they're like, oh, this is some truth, and I see this with all these truther accounts online that share these like truthful things, but then they're like, buy my zeolite. They mix fact with, They mix fact with fiction, and they act like they're truthers, but then when you try to give them some truth, they reject it. They don't like it. Like that truther account the other day that was saying there was no aluminum in the zeolite, and we were all saying, no, it's made of aluminum. It's an aluminosilicate. It's aluminum. And she just blocked us, deleted the comments. Like, you're not really into truth, are you? But they call themselves truthers. But anyway, that's a tactic, that's like a mind control tactic to mix fact with fiction. So the Bible does have a lot of fact, and so that's going to rope people in, because they're going to go, hey, this resonates, this has the ring of truth. And then they mix all these fictional interpretations in.
Yeah, it's a fun exploration. But
you got to uncover what is fact and what is fiction.
And I think that's what's amazing about a little bit of heart purification or really getting in tune. That's what I feel like, at least at this phase in my life, has been my mission, is helping people to get in touch with their own inner wisdom, like how to actually feel that. And it's because I lived for so long turning that off, whether it was through different outside programmings, through bulimia, because bulimia is really just training yourself not to feel, when you're hungry or full or when something's wrong. And so when I started the spiritual path of like, oh, just tune inward, it was like dead from the neck down. I was like, what do you mean? Like, I knew to shrink. That was about it. And it was like when I felt fat or whatever, like I was convincing myself I was just always shrinking, like crunching down. And anyways, it's been a 15-year journey of just unraveling that, and now it's like I'll hear something and I'm like, I don't know why that feels off yet, but there's something off. I'll look deeper later, and then usually I find something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is good to trust those instincts, and it only takes a little bit to get reintroduced to that inner voice. And every time you honor it and listen to it, it gets stronger and louder until you don't have to. You don't have to even wonder anymore. You're like, no, I have a gut feeling. I always trust my gut.
A lot of things, it seems like, come back to the spleen somehow.
Yeah, the spleen for sure, because it digests everything for you, including information, experiences. So I'm sure, if you're picking up some vibes, it's going to digest and output that for you too. But yeah, the spleen is really... because that's the in Chinese medicine, the spleen is the spleen, stomach, pancreas. So that's the center. That's the center of the body. That's the middle. So it's, and it's processing everything for you. So it's huge.
Well, we have covered so much today, and there's still, I could have talked to you for like 5 hours. One day, if you're like, I just want a really long chat, just hit me up. We can record it, we cannot.
You gotta eat, girl. You have to go eat now.
I know. Well, I love to leave listeners with like one sort of action item, and we've covered too much. Usually it's like to kind of bring what we talked about into, but if you were to just give people one thing to do this week or to think about that would just help their overall reactivation, what would that be?
Life path. Just figure out what your life path is. Add up the numbers of your birthday, reduce it down to a single sum, and figure out what your life path is. And then go to my numerology descriptions in the link tree of my Instagram, because my descriptions are the only ones that I recommend. I haven't found any that I like, and I base mine on the data that I collected for 15 years. I think it's going on even longer, 17 years now. And the words. So I break down the words to find what the words add up to. And that is what really reveals the theme of these numbers. Like, everything is encoded in this universe. Everything is encoded down to the finest detail. So, when you look at the languages that we're using, it's all encoded with these numbers, 1 to 9. This is like the sequence of the universe, 1 to 9. So just figure out what your mission number is, what your life path number is. Read that description from my link tree, my numerology description website, and just think about that. Like, honestly, it's, for some people, it's life-changing. All they needed was that confirmation of who they are, the character they came to play, the mission that they have to fulfill on Earth. That's all they needed. That was the only confirmation they needed to move. And then their whole life flips upside down in the best ways possible.
And so there's two different versions, though, because you said something like you said mine was, even though mine ended up being 33 and that drills down to 6, but since 5 is my first number, that's different. Did I?
So I was telling you about your core numbers. I was telling you about your 3 core numbers in numerology. So you have a whole binary, like a whole HTML coding to your human organic robot. And it's not just these 3 numbers. There's also name numbers and soul numbers. And there's all these different numbers that make you who you are, that are part of your programming. Mm-hmm. But all I want people to do is get the life path number, the mission number, because I think the mission number is the most important number in the whole code. I think the mission on Earth is the most important out of all of the features that you've been programmed with. The mission and fulfilling that mission is the most important thing, in my opinion. So just add your birthday up, then whatever that number adds up to, add that number into itself until you get a single sum. So, as an example, my birthday is December 6th, 1983. So I'm going to do 12 plus 6 plus 19 plus 83, and I get 120. So there's no zeros in numerology. So 120 would be 12. And now I want to reduce that to a single sum. So that would be 1 plus 2 is 3. I'm a life path 3. So just do that. Just figure out the life path, the mission number. Don't worry about any other numbers right now. Just focus on the life path number and finding out everything you can about that life path number. And whatever resonates with you, put that in your toolkit, keep that with you, and keep reminding yourself of who you really are. Keep reminding yourself of this confirmation that you got, that all these secrets that you've kept inside about your powers, your superpowers, your abilities. Because how you said I wanted to be a shaman, but I don't want to be another stereotype, that kind of thing. So you have like this secret shaman's self. Just put that in the front of your mind. Put those characters, those traits, put that all in the front of your mind. Get your conscious mind locked and loaded, and your subconscious will do the rest. So that's all you have to do is remind yourself, I'm a shaman, I'm an energy healer, I'm a genius, I'm a fucking god of my own universe. Just keep reminding yourself of those characters that you came to play, but especially the life path, especially the mission.
Oh, you would love the speech I'm giving on Thursday. That is what it's about. I am the god of my own universe. And I love the life path number, the communicator, entertainer, millionaire, mystic, and wizard. I can get behind that completely. So thank you for that confirmation. And for listeners who have already gotten an inkling, they love you as much as I do, where's the best place for them to find you?
Instagram. I think I'm on Instagram the most. I do have a Patreon, which is where I put protocols and articles. But Instagram, I'm always talking shit on there. So nutrition.elements is my handle.
All the links for this episode are at mindlove.com/386. Your challenge for this week is to calculate your life path number and discover your divine programming. And then go to nutrition.elements on Instagram and check out her My Numerology descriptions in her link tree. So as Kaleigh says, sometimes just knowing your mission is all you need to activate your character in this game. And because we didn't get to fully unpack all of the mind-blowing things that I've learned from Kaleigh, I want to share a couple of other gems that have just been really life-changing in the last couple of years, or the last year, I should say. So here's number 1 for me, the microplastics scare. Did you know that the only way to even test for microplastics is to test for polymers, which are already present in the earth and our DNA? So when you see all of those scary headlines about microplastics being everywhere, it's basically meaningless fear-based marketing. Now let's talk about water. You know those fancy reverse osmosis filters everyone's obsessed with? Well, they're actually creating dead water by stripping out all the minerals. Even the ones that claim to add minerals back in don't quite cut it. And here's the thing. When water is dead, it seeks to become whole again by pulling minerals from your body. So I actually got rid of my $1,000 RO system and switched to spring water and mineral waters. And the craziest part is when I was pregnant and dealing with terrible morning sickness, switching to mineral water made my nausea drop by like 90% in 2 days. Okay, now the toothpaste front. Yes, fluoride in drinking water is problematic, and it has been proven to lower IQs in children. But I'm starting to think that fluoride in toothpaste is a different story. And if you're skeptical, check out Dr. Ellie's protocol. I'll link her hour-long video on creating healthy teeth that completely changed my mind. And the truth is, I tried. For like 12 years. I tried every remineralizing paste out there with no success. I was getting like $25 hydroxyapatite toothpaste, and my intuition was just pulling me, saying this is not working for you. And so I ended up switching to Dr. Ellie's protocol with a lot of inner resistance, and it worked for me. My teeth are healthier than they've felt in 12 years. I do use a tongue scraper after her protocol to get any of the remnants out so I'm not swallowing any excess, but it is gold. And there are thousands of people in Kaleigh's stories that have said that they switched to Dr. Ellie's too, and it's been life-changing. And so this is the cool thing about Kaleigh's profile. You can go to her profile and she has highlights of all the conversations that have unraveled on her stories. And so she's not just sharing her opinions, she is screenshotting all of the responses that she gets back so that we can see unbiased reviews of everything. And this is why everyone's like, oh, so I'm not the only one that these holistic products aren't working for. And another shocker, Pantene. Pantene is still one of the best shampoos out there. I know, right? I have it in my rotation along with Function of Beauty, which proves that some natural products can be great too. I still really like that one. But the truth is, sometimes bigger companies just have more resources to perfect their formulas, while some pop-up natural brands might not have done the research. Or worse, they might hide negative reviews when things go wrong. So anyways, this is a lot to unpack, but it's a lot of fun. So give it a try and let me know how it goes. You can reach me at mindlovemelissa on Instagram. And lastly, if you are in the holistic world and you're feeling a whole lot of resistance to what I said, I get it. I was highly triggered too. And so I challenge you to go to her Instagram, look through some of her highlights, and just lurk for a couple of days before you send a message to anyone arguing. It's interesting. And even if you don't decide to make those choices, you know what's right for you. If you have an intuitive pull that something's working or is not, or that something is good for you or is not, trust that. That inner wisdom is usually pretty spot on about what's right for us once we get beyond our programming. You can also find my incredible sponsors at mindlove.com/sponsors. And don't forget to check out the collective at mindlove.com/join. Thanks for giving your mind a little love today, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning into Your Higher Frequency with Mind Love. Head to mindlove.com for a free gift to keep your vibes up until next week.